My name is Rich Chester, and I'm the Director of Business Intelligence at LPA Software Solutions. It's my pleasure to be with you today to talk to you about what's new in the IBM Cognos Analytics feature, Jupyter Notebooks, and also to explain what's up with that spelling. Today's webinar, like all our webinars, is being recorded, and you can pick up any previously presented webinar from our website, www.lpa.com/resources, or on our YouTube channel. There you'll find our complete series of what's new in Cognos Analytics, both those presentations that are about the new features on a release-by-release basis, as well as some deep dives, for example, into data modules, explorations, and dashboards. In addition to the Cognos Analytics recordings you'll find there, you'll also find recordings from our other practice areas, financial performance management, advanced analytics, which includes Watson Technologies Cloud Pak for Data, and our information management practice. We hope you find that this is a valuable resource as you continue on your analytics journey. While on that journey, you might find you need some help, and LPA would be proud to earn your business. In my area of business intelligence, the kinds of services we offer are detailed here. Upgrades and migrations, upgrades from older versions, even from Cognos ReportNet 1.1, all the way up into the latest release of 11, or perhaps a smaller jump from, say, 11.0 to 11.1. In addition, you might find yourself converting from a different technology than Cognos Analytics or Cognos BI. For example, Series 7 from IBM, or perhaps one of the other technologies that are out there that you would wish to convert to Cognos 11. LPA has a proven set of practices and processes to accurately, completely, and succinctly, if you will, efficiently convert non-IBM technologies to IBM Cognos Analytics. Perhaps you find that the care and feeding on a day-to-day basis of your Cognos Analytics environment is not the best way to use your resources, and you wish to outsource those services. LPA has a complete set of managed services designed to give you the opportunity to outsource a little or a lot of those day-to-day tasks in administering and managing your Cognos environment. Perhaps you just have a bunch of reports to write, or dashboards to create, or explorations to devise. Our reporting services group, based in Buffalo, New York, has, again, a specific and proprietary methodology for accurately and efficiently creating reports and dashboards and explorations for you. Perhaps you're concerned about how your environment is performing. Perhaps it's not as fast as you would expect it to be. Perhaps you've got some security issues going on. Maybe you're not sure if your reports or your framework models or your data modules have been created following best practices. In those cases, a health check might be just the ticket. LPA would come in and would thoroughly evaluate your environment from the way it was installed all the way up through and including the way that reports and dashboards are being written and how security is being implemented and so on. We deliver a document with all of our observations and our recommendations. Those that we recommend take place immediately, those that we recommend could take place over a longer period of time. And then you can determine which of the recommendations you wish to implement. And potentially, you could engage LPA to help you implement them. And then finally, our training services. We have a complete array of end-to-end training materials for Cognos Analytics in my organization. These are kept up to date with every release, and they're intended to teach you the foundation skills like report authoring and advanced report authoring, all the way up to some of the more advanced skills like working with data modules or framework manager, administration, everything end to end. And again, if you find you need help on your analytic journey, LPA would be proud and honored to earn your business. Now, on to Jupyter Notebooks. Throughout the webinar today, if you have questions, please submit them by the WebEx chat feature. At the end of today's time, provided there is time, frequent watchers of mine know I run out of time routinely. But if there is time at the end of today's webinar, I will answer as many questions as I can while on the air. However, if we run out of time before we run out of questions, please rest assured that I'll answer all of your questions via email after the webinar is over. So what is a Jupyter Notebook? So Jupyter is an open source object. It's a web application. It lets you create and share what they call documents. But the unique thing about these documents versus, say, a Microsoft document is that they contain live code. Could be code written in any number of different languages, although I think most of us think Python when we think Jupyter Notebooks, but that's not the only thing in general that a Jupyter Notebook, only language a Jupyter Notebook might use. And these are shareable documents with code, equations, also narrative text, outputs from your code. So there's an awful lot of visualization libraries out there where you could create a visualization within a Jupyter Notebook, and in one of the output cells, it'll show you that visualization so that you can collaborate easily. These are portable, movable, things that you can share. The kinds of things that I have found people have done with the Jupyter Notebooks include data cleansing and transformation, if you will, almost like a little ETL engine. Certainly, it's not a data stage, but it does have the ability to read and write data. Statistical modeling, advanced analytics, visualizations, machine learning, all of those things can be coded within a Jupyter Notebook. Now, to the name portion, Jupyter is sort of an acronym. Online, they called it a loose acronym of the three original languages that you could leverage in a code node in your Jupyter Notebook: Julia, Python, and R. Just the PY in Jupyter is the PY in Python. At the moment, in general, if you were to look online at the open source of Jupyter Notebook, you would find that there are more than 50 languages now supported, what they call kernels that implement an array of languages. Although in Cognos Analytics, we are right now specifically talking about Python when we use a Cognos Analytics Jupyter Notebook. But in the general sense, Jupyter Notebooks are an open source portable application document that can be coded in a lot of different languages. Now, from a data science perspective, which is sort of the intersection point of Jupyter with the IBM overall analytics portfolio, how do they work? Well, data science is about drawing useful conclusions from data sets, right? And you use exploration, prediction, and inference in general in data science. And I like the definition that I found for those three things: exploration being identifying patterns, prediction being using what we know to make informed guesses meaning based on algorithms, about things we wish to know. And then inference is, and how good was that prediction? So using Python or other languages and the array of libraries that are out there that implement these really complex statistical notions, you can explore, predict, and then apply a degree of certainty to your prediction by coding in a Jupyter notebook. Now, the notion of a Jupyter notebook also adds value from the point of view of sharing and collaboration. So because they're portable, or as you'll see in the case of Cognos Analytics Jupyter notebooks, because they can be stored in the Cognos Analytics portal, they are shareable. They're easily obtainable across your organization, no matter where your data scientists live. So you can easily collaborate on software code. You can easily collaborate with, hey, look at this output. Is there any way you think I can improve it? My level of inference seems to be low to me. Do you have ideas? That kind of collaboration by being able to open and look at and run and potentially co-modify, right? Hey, try this, take a look at this kinds of stuff through the Cognos Analytics portal. And it's one environment in which you write your code, you execute your code, you see what happens, you continue to refine and improve. It's almost, as again, I found online, why is Jupyter Notebooks data scientists' notebook of choice? It's an interactive conversation is the answer that this article found, which that really seemed to resonate with folks as I talked to them. Collaborate across your organization with data scientists sharing, in the case of Cognos Analytics, my notebooks with those data scientists and my non-data scientists. So that's why we added them to Cognos Analytics, says IBM. In many organizations, data scientists that use Python to do these advanced things are living in silos. They're working in silos. I'm not sure where they're living, but they're working in silos. Many times they're leveraging data that is not governed. It's not coming from, let's say, one of our framework manager packages or from a data module. And they have no simple way of delivering their results to the overall large population. However, Cognos is where we have our managed data, right? And that's where we have a majority of our users go for information. Our curated information, especially, is to log into Cognos Analytics and run reports and open dashboards and do explorations. Now, you drop Jupyter Notebooks in there, you get two things. Number one, your data scientists can now share with each other as well as the overall larger community using Cognos Analytics, and the insights, the outputs, those components that bring to light a previously unknown insight can easily be incorporated into dashboards or into reports as of the 11.1.4 version. So you can take these outputs that the Jupyter Notebooks create, and then you can embed them as objects in a dashboard or a report. So we're taking our world of data scientists, who are often our power users and often separate from our other analysts and data workers who are using Cognos Analytics, and we're bringing them into the fold. And as by result of bringing them into the fold, we give them some value in terms of sharing amongst each other. We give the organization value in terms of sharing the results across the organization in a way we're already using. It's already embedded in our business process. So that's why adding them to Cognos Analytics is such an exciting thing for so many folks. Now, let's get to the technical parts of our look at the notebooks. First of all, we have to install a notebook server, a Cognos Analytics notebook server specifically. And this is one of the cases where only Linux is supported for the technology. So a lot of us have Cognos Analytics running on Windows. If you are running on Windows, you cannot install your Jupyter Notebook server alongside your Cognos Analytics server because it's not supported on Windows, at least not yet. That is in the roadmap, but it's not available today. So instead, it has to be on one of the two supported environments for Linux, which are Red Hat and Ubuntu. Last I checked. Always check the supported environments website, though, for details. You also have to install Docker on that Linux server, Docker CE or Docker EE. And by the way, there are some terrific and very easy to follow documentation for doing the install available online. That's exactly how I learned how to do the install. And not only are there instructions, but on each of the major steps, there's videos so you can see it being done. Now, there is a binary installer and a zip file with the software in it for Jupyter Notebooks, very similar to installing the Cognos Analytics server. There's an installer and a zip file. Well, there's an installer and a zip file that you would download from Passport Advantage for Jupyter Notebooks. And then once it's all installed and configured, you integrate the Jupyter server with the Cognos server via a URL. Now I'm going to stop here and just show you a couple of things relative to the installation. So I have a graphical interface on my Linux server here, and that's important. In order to install the Jupyter Notebooks software, you have to be able to run this installer program. To run the installer program requires a graphical interface. So here I'm on the console of my Linux VM, and I'm using the graphical interface here to invoke the installer, which I will run as an administrator. And it will extract some stuff from the installer, and then it will launch the installer. And it looks just like a regular Cognos Analytics install at this point. When you click Next, it will proceed to do the initial setups. It will eventually ask me to select my zip file, which I will do here. And it will not let me install Cognos Analytics because that's not in the zip, right? It's just Jupyter. So it's always going to come up Tools. And the only tool involved is the Jupyter server. And then it will ask you where, and it will lay the software down for you. So this gets the software into, and as you can see, the default folder is the opt folder. This will get you the software, and then you run a configuration step, which is not through the Cognos configuration tool, but is updating a set of files. And then you launch the Jupyter components in the Docker containers, and Jupyter is up and running. So I just wanted to give you a quick notion of the install, and the install is actually rather straightforward. If I go up to this opt location and just show you, that would be out here in opt. So I left the default IBM Cognos. I installed 11.1.2 and 11.1.3 on this one. I'll go to the 11.1.3 and just show you under dist, you'll find under scripts, under Unix, there is a configuration file, which I'll open and just show you. The most important bits in the configuration file, honestly, is the port number. This is important. The default is 8000. When you configure Cognos Analytics, you're going to need to specify this port number in the configuration. And what's the name of the host? Now, I'm not using a host name, I'm using an IP address, but the idea is that in the configuration file, this information is really the external communication information from Cognos Analytics to this Jupyter server. There's a few other configuration settings in here. I didn't change any. For this installation, really, all I did was update the hostname. And then Docker is already started. When you do the install shell, it installs all the components that are needed for Docker. You do a build, and then you do a start, and that instantiates the Docker bits, and the Jupyter notebooks run, and then you can stop. And again, all detailed in the documentation. Today's not a how do I install Jupyter day. I just wanted to give you a quick view of what that looks like. Now it's installed. So now you want to configure. So like the slide said, you have to configure this in your Cognos Analytics environment. So here's my Cognos Analytics environment. I'll go to Manage, Configuration, and this is an 11.1.3 environment. And I'll go to System, and I'll expand Environment, and there is one environment entry, and there's the IP address, and there's the port, and you don't have to have anything else, just the port and the IP address. Real simple configuration. Once you've applied that, you're ready to go. Now there is a downloadable set of sample Jupyter notebooks from IBM. They're not part of the regular samples. You have to download them. If you Google Jupyter notebook samples from the IBM site, you'll get that download of the zip file. And when you import them, they'll show up in the samples under notebooks here. And so you'll get some sample notebooks. And then your setup is essentially complete. Now, back to some slides before we create a quick little notebook. So it's not just that you have Jupyter notebooks like you would have outside of Cognos, but this specific Jupyter notebooks implementation is fully integrated into Cognos. If you will, it is a 100% player. So you can secure notebooks in team content or my content. You can secure them in the team content like you can secure anything else. There is a capability that you can secure. So these roles get access to the notebook capability, and these roles don't. You can share your notebooks using email or Slack. So the whole share notion that's baked into reports and dashboards and explorations and stories, that is also shareable relative to your notebooks. So again, fully integrated, and you can schedule them. So if you, for example, are using a notebook, not let's say to run a one-time analysis and get an output on a data set, but maybe as an ongoing process, maybe to move data, um, that sort of thing, you can schedule your notebooks. Full on scheduling, you go right click on the notebook and choose properties and create a schedule. And then they will automatically run. You can also right click on them or use the action menu buttons to run them right now, but there's also a schedule option. And if you've got notebooks that you created externally, you can upload them into Cognos so that you don't have to start over if you've got notebooks that you've already created. Now, when you get in and you open the notebook, it's interesting. So, you configure the Cognos Analytics server to know about the notebook server, but when you use the notebook capability, you click New Notebook or you edit an existing notebook. The communication to the notebook server is actually via your PC, not your PC to Cognos Analytics to notebook server. They cut out the middleman. So you need the configuration, and that enables the notebooks components to appear. But it actually is important that your PC can communicate with that notebook server directly. There's a great deal of help available. Today, it's not my intention to teach you Python. It's not my intention to have you watch me write a lot of code. That would be, a poor use of our time together. But there's a lot to learn about leveraging a notebook. And today's not that day in a short webinar like this, but there's an amazing array of help available, both through the interface and just in general on the web. For Jupyter Notebooks. And everything I've tried, everything I've read on the web that I've then tried in Cognos Analytics, it's all just worked. So there's a lot of good information out there, not just a lot of information. In addition to getting all the goodness of Jupyter Notebooks in general, they've extended Jupyter Notebooks with two Cognos-specific methods. One that can read data from a Cognos source and one that can write data to Cognos. So the reader can read uploaded files, data sets, data modules, and packages. So with this read data connector for Cognos Analytics, I can incorporate into my analysis the managed data from the objects in Cognos, the data objects in Cognos. And then after I've done manipulations within my code, I can then write the resulting output to a folder in team content or to my content. It will appear, this output will appear as though it were an uploaded file. It wasn't one, but it will appear as though it is one. And you've got three modes. You can overwrite the file and create the file if it doesn't exist. You can append it to an existing file, and if it's the first time the file's been hit, create it if it doesn't exist. And there's also a just create the file brand spanking new and write to it. And if the file does exist, then don't do anything, stop. So three modes: read it, write it. So that's specific to the Cognos Analytics version of the Jupyter Notebook world. Now, some things you could do: certainly sophisticated analysis, as I've described, which our data scientists would do. But you also could write some data movement notebooks. And in fact, one of those samples I referenced is a simple data movement, simple basic ETL example of reading data, doing some cleansing, and writing data. You can also automate certain Cognos Analytics data tasks. For example, refreshing an uploaded file. And indeed, that has been such a popular topic as I've chatted about Jupyter Notebooks. That's the example I'm going to do for you today. Not only is it, I think, a terrific add-on for the Jupyter Notebooks world, it is very simple, very succinct to write, and so it makes for a terrific short example. Now, as riveting as it would be for you to watch me type in some Python, I'm not going to put you through that. I'm just going to show you the 4 nodes that I wrote that do the automation of uploading a spreadsheet to Cognos Analytics. So we've got a little bit of housekeeping at the top, including the use of a reader for Excel files. That's open source data that you can incorporate. So remember I told you lots and lots of libraries. That's a library that you can import from um, a collection called Pandas that lets me read Excel files and manipulate Excel files in various ways. And then I'm going to use that ability to read an Excel file. I happen to be reading an Excel file via a URL. You can absolutely read Excel files from disks and from file shares. It's just not how I chose to implement this little example. So this is my read the Excel file into memory node. This is unnecessary for the process, but I did it to show you just a small thing. That is, show me the first 5 rows. That's what this head command does. Show me the first 5 rows. So data is what I just read in from Excel. Head says show me the first several rows. And then this is my CA data connector write. And this is drop this file into my folders, my content, but you still refer to it in your path as my folders in this particular case, with mode W, which is a replace. So housekeeping, read my file into memory. For fun, show the first few rows, write the file you just read to my content as population.xlsx. So let's take a look at how that works. So here in Cognos Analytics, out in my content, I have the notebook. I'm just going to click on the notebook here. And I'm just going to rerun it right now just to be sure that I have. So you see it ran pretty fast. So housekeeping, read in my file. Here are the first 5 rows of said file. And write it to, so it's already actually done the read and write, interestingly enough. Now that file lives out here. And I'm just going to open this file and show you this file. So there's my row 1, Chestertown, Barnstable, and so on. What I'm going to do now that I've read it in, and of course it's shown me the data, that's great. I'm going to save this. And I'm going to create a dashboard. Now you might ask me why I'm creating a dashboard, but you'll see in a second. So what I'm going to do in my dashboard is I'm going to use my uploaded file. So let me go to my content. There's my uploaded file. And if we look at the data that's in it, you see there's that Chestertown row. That was row number 1 in the file as I showed it to you. I'm just going to do a quick little summary and show the total population, 5.3.7. Just to show you how easy it is, I'm going to open widgets. When you have notebooks configured, this advanced option will appear under the widgets in a dashboard. And this allows you to embed a piece of a dashboard. Excuse me. It allows you to embed a piece of a notebook in your dashboard. I'm going to embed that output node, that first 5 rows node, that's part of my notebook. So there we go. So there's that's an output node from a notebook. That's a sum of the population measure in my spreadsheet. Let me save this guy. We call it webinar dashboard. Let me get out of this guy. Now, I'm going to edit that file. I'm going to delete Chestertown, which is going to take 100,000 of the population out of the data. Okay, I'll hit save. And then I'm just going to run my Jupyter Notebook. 2 ways to run it right now or on a schedule. Let me just quickly show you under Properties, under Schedule. You can add a schedule. You can see I have one already that it would run every hour. So full-on schedule capability. Of course, there's no quote-unquote delivery notion because it's not a report. But this allows me to schedule. I can schedule on a trigger. I can schedule on whatever cadence makes sense. I'm not going to wait for the schedule to run. We're just going to run it right now. So I'm going to click run. It always runs in the background. When it finishes running, I will get a little notification up here. The notifications, the polling to give me the red one up here has just happened. I've got my notification. It finished running. So it should have updated my uploaded file. And Chestertown should no longer be in those first 5 rows. And my total for population should be down 100,000. Let's open the dashboard and take a look. So I went from 5.3 to 5.2. And you'll notice that that Chestertown row of 100,000 is no longer in my data set. So Jupyter Notebooks give me an exceptional amount of capability to programmatically do any number of things. Very, very sophisticated things, or as we just saw, some relatively simple things. And they allow me to do it with curated data contained in Cognos Analytics. So I think I have time for a couple of questions. This is intended to be a 30-minute webinar, and it looks like I might be a little bit over. But I do see that there are a few questions out there about licensing. So let me at least address those while we have time together. And I will address all of the other questions that you have submitted via email right after the webinar. But in terms of licensing, so the Jupyter Notebook server software is something that you are entitled to by owning the Cognos Analytics on-premise software. So if you own Cognos Analytics on-premise, which means to imply that it's not Cognos Express and it's not cloud, because Jupyter is affiliated with neither of those. But if you have a full-on on-premise Cognos Analytics license, you should be able to download the installer and the zip file with the Jupyter software in it from Passport Advantage today if you just logged in. Now, in terms of using the Jupyter Notebooks capabilities, those are relative to the Analytic Explorer and above license. So, the most common licenses that are out there: Analytic Administrator, Analytic Explorer, Analytic User, and now Analytic Viewer. Those 4 license levels. The first level that gets you access to the notebooks feature is Analytic Explorer. Well, I was correct. I'm getting the high sign. I've already gone over my allotted 30 minutes time, so I apologize to those who presented questions, but I will absolutely answer those via email right after the webinar. So what remains is for me to say thank you once again for joining me for a What's New in Cognos Analytics webinar. I hope you found this informative, and I hope you join me again very, very soon. I look forward to it. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.